It's been a long time coming. I feel like, I don't know, how long have we been doing this? Maybe 3 years, 4 years? It's a long, long time ago. Way back in the midst, oh my goodness, it must have been 2020 that Ian and I started adventuring in the Warhammer Black Library universe together. And I started reading Xenos by Dan Abnett. And at that time, I didn't know anything about the Emperor. When the Emperor was mentioned by Eisenhorn and his crew, I had no idea. I didn't know anything about Primarchs. I didn't know anything about the Legions. I certainly didn't know about Dreadnoughts. I didn't know about the Warp. And yet, here today, a mere disciple of a small, tiny tip of a massive iceberg, I am reading what I believe to be some truths about the Chaos Demons and their influence on the Primarchs. So this is quite a portentous day. It took me some time to read this book because I kept going back and rereading bits. It's by one of our favourites. I say that about every single Warhammer author, Dembski-Bowden. And it is very much Lorgar's story. It's the story of Lorgar kind of wanting to be a traitor and talking to Horus about it. Horus is very obviously the boss, the big brother. Yeah, we'll get into it. But I feel like I've waited a long time for this. So just going to take time to say hello to everybody in the chat. Hi, Alex. Hello, Christian. Christian says, it's great that I caught this one. It's been a while since I could take part in these, and such a good novella too. It is a great novella. Lorgar Aurelian, the man that only wanted the truth, says Christian. Indeed. But now I know the truth. Do I want the truth? Because this book is very much Lorgar's tale, but it is a tale that begins and ends with Fulgrim. Fulgrim is one of my favourites. Some of you will know that I have merch in my merch range, which is a t-shirt or mug or sticker or whatever you would like with the words "Say Fulgrim" on there. Because at the end of, is it Galaxy in Flames, or I can never remember. It's Horus Rising, Galaxy in Flames. Anyway, at the end of the first 3 books, we know that Fulgrim is a baddie. Then we read further into the Heresy, and we understand that there is a demon afoot. There's a demon around, and the demon has got up Fulgrim. Fulgrim's got a demon up him. It is what we say. It is the vernacular we use. Hello, David. Good evening. Hello, Menarak. Welcome. Menarak says, interesting topic, hi all. Tony says, long ago, a young unicorn entered the world of the grimdark. So glad you did, for we are here now. I'm not so glad I did, but I'm very glad to be with all of you. Yes, this is Mira pre-Warhammer. This is one of my favourite books, and still remains one of my favourite books, and stands up to repeated reading, and that's why I'm a grimdark unicorn. So, despite Ian's side eye and many messages of solidarity, but solace and comfort, especially, maybe 2 years ago, Games Workshop released the Fulgrim Ascension model, which is essentially Fulgrim, half snake demon, half Primarch. I was hoping for some slight redemption, and we've read The Reflection Cracked, most recently by Graham McNeil. If you're a YouTube member or a Patreon, you can watch the video with me and Graham talking about that. We all read Fulgrim together, and this book kind of definitively tells us what has happened to Fulgrim. But more than that, much, much more. So I guess the whole time I've been going through the Horus Heresy, bear in mind I haven't played Warhammer 40k, I haven't read any of the codex. I'm only getting my information about the Emperor and 30k through Horus Heresy in order. So I suppose there's a Venn diagram, right? There's Traitor Primarchs who are unhappy with the Emperor. They don't want to finish the Great Crusade. They want more purpose. They want to know their purpose. So there's that part of the Venn diagram. Then here is the warp and chaos and the demons. And some legions are dipping into demonic inkwells. Some Primarchs are having demons up them. Lorgar, as we all know, was completely dishonoured. The Ultramarines were sent to his planet because he was being too pious and he'd started up a pseudo-emperor religion, and the Ultramarines had destroyed his world, which is a very big mistake on the part of the Emperor. Hello, Historiator Jamaldus, welcome to the chat. Galaxy in Flames, thank you, Christian. Historiator Jamaldus says, you read a bit of the Eldar Codex and Codex Imperialis. Yes, we need to continue that series. So here we are. This is a book of 5 parts. It's a really slim novel, you can see. And I can tell you when it was published as well. Aurelian, The Eye Stares Back is the subtitle of this novel. This was first published in Great Britain in 2011, which means it was prior to Fear to Tread. So probably it's come after the first Heretic, which is very much Lorgar's story. But it tells the story of Istvan V and before that. So it's split into 5 parts. And it's got some great quotes at the beginning, which, as always, make more sense when you've read through the book. Hello, welcome, Al Mulgavar. Howdy. Howdy doody. Hey, everybody. Hey, Jake Woo. 3 things cannot be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Ancient Terran proverb, which is just so everything about anything that happens in this heresy. The next is a quote from the Primarch Corax. I wish with every fibre of my soul that I had killed him when I had the chance. That momentary flicker of disbelief and sorrow, that second's hesitation for the abhorrence of fratricide, cost us more than anyone can measure. Horus leads the legions into heresy, but Lorgar is the cancer in the Warmaster's core. So that's a quote from Corax. And on Istvan V, I think that's when Lorgar and Corax have a big duel. They both nearly die. Corax definitely is the loser. He's rescued by his Raven Guard. And I'm wondering in Dropsite Massacre whether all this is covered too. The next quote is the opening lines from the Book of Lorgar. The first canticle of chaos. So, ramblings of a madman. All I ever wanted was the truth. Remember those words as you read the ones that follow. I never set out to topple my father's kingdom of lies from a sense of misplaced pride. I never wanted to bleed the species to its marrow, reaving half the galaxy clean of human life in this bitter crusade. I never desired any of this, though I know the reasons for which it must be done. But all I ever wanted was the truth. So, yeah, ickety dickety. So, firstly, we have a prologue, and it's Lorgar before he has met the Emperor, and Corphaeron, and Lorgar has a premonition about meeting the Emperor. That's the prophecy. That is also the prologue. Christian says, some of it is covered in Dropsite Massacre, but most of the key jewels are in other novels like Pilgrim or First Heretic. Historiator Jamaldus says, a summary of Aurelian is it fills in Lorgar's journey into the Eye of Terror, which happens off-screen in First Heretic. So, yeah. So you could read First Heretic and then this, or this and then First Heretic. That's a Laura Lorgar. We've got a Laura Lorgar. Part 1, the 17th Son. And this is the problem with youngest children. No offence to my wee brother, who is excellent, who gave me some very good coaching around making spag bol tonight. So the first part, the 17th Son, it's quite an amusing meeting. They're all meeting. Horus has called all the traitor legions together. A bunch of them are just holographic, a bit like, you know, Star Wars chess models. And they have a big scrap. Lorgar is really pissed off because he has realised that pilgrim has got a demon up him. You're not my brother. Smacks him around the chops. He says, Horus is like, Magnus, are you not going to sort this out? And Magnus is like, I'm done keeping you away from each other. So that is the first meeting. Horus has called them all together. They don't even get to talk about what they're meeting about because it all kicks off and Lorgar decides to beat up Fulgrim. Doesn't that always happen when siblings get together? Alex says Alora Lorgar. It's true. Tony says, yummy. Yes, exactly. The next part is called the Pilgrim. Not the Fulgrim, the Pilgrim. So this is Shan Riatha, 43 years before Istvan V. Lorgar has gone down to a very dead planet, which is just covered in dust, which is kind of covering an old ruined civilization. So like a dystopia planet, basically. And a demon, Ingethel, who's very slithery and mucusy and disgusting, is his demon guide, leading him into the darkest, telling him about the prophecies of what will happen to Lorgar, what will happen to the galaxy, and is trying to... Oh, there's quite an interesting little preamble in here about the formation of Slaanesh, who we all know is one of the Chaos Gods. And Lorgar is talking to Inethel about the Monkey, the Eldar races. And Lorgar says, why do you name them soul broken? If such a thing as Ingethel could said to be smile, it did so now. You know what this place is. Not this world, but this whole region of space where gods and mortals meet. A goddess was born here, Slaanesh, she who thirsts. Now, I don't think we meet Slaanesh on this planet. I think we meet Khorne. But basically, I hate that when I say basically too much. Please do at me in the stream if I go basically mad. The demon is explaining how the Eldar created the old... I think this is right. I'm going to check with Ian. The Eldar created these gods because of the way that they live. Because they had something called craft worlds. These are elven ships made of living bone, carrying the remnants of their species into the stars on a final exodus. Is this the Eldar or the old gods? Anyway, all this to discover when Ian makes things clear. Many of the fledgling craft worlds failed to escape Slaaneth's birth scream. They dissolved in the void or fell to die on the faces of these abandoned worlds. So, it's a very haunted world. Ziggy03 says, I love these streams. How many Warhammer books have you read now? Ziggy03, that's a really good question. I don't know. I've lost count. If anybody does know, please let me know. Christian says, you met Ingethel, the demon, in First Heretic. I could completely block that demon from my mind. Or had the demon erased themselves? Christian says, only one of the Chaos Gods, Slaanesh, was made by the Eldari. Craft worlds are those Ereldi that ran away, that survived the birth of Slaanesh. Thank God we've got Historita Jamaldis and Christian in the chat. Cheers to you both. David Gibb, the Eldar created Slaanesh by being deviants. The Eye of Terror was previously the Eldar homeworlds, which just goes to show, don't buy candles from an elf. That's a deep cut there from my channel, for anyone who's been with us long enough. So, Lorgar is wandering around these dead cities. It's a very toxic, poisonous environment. And then On the red soil, an outline of black ash marked the shape of a god's grave. Lorgar, do you see it? And we then go into in war. Then we're going to have a massive scrap. The bum skewer ritual summoned Ingethel. Now I remember. Thank you, Jim. There you go. Why didn't you say bum skewer ritual? So Lorgar goes down into the Eternity Gate. This is the Eternity Gate is in the Emperor's Palace on Terra, and that's the portal to the Emperor's secret genetic lab, which we learned a lot more about in Valdor. And he's being shown all the secrets. Also, the demon keeps showing him different parts of his future. And it's a very long conversation with the demon. There's a lot of back and forth. Lorgar, in the vision, begs to go and see Magnus. And the demon says, no, you mustn't see Magnus. You mustn't see Magnus. You're not allowed. But Lorgar breaks through the seals, manages to convince the ghostly word bearers, because he's basically in an alternate universe. Oh, Tony, thank you. 5 squid for ingredients to make yourself a spag bol. Well, a small one. This is actually quite exciting. Just take a little break from the drama to announce it's nearly Christmas. I've done myself an Amazon wish list with all of Games Workshop's Christmas jumpers in it. So I've only got my what one have I got? I think I've got an Ultramarines Christmas jumper. So yes, if you'd like to buy me a Spag Bol or Space Marine jumpers, you can now do so. Thank you so much. I'm going to hammer some hearts for Tony. We do love a little investment in the channel. I won't say it's the only reason I'm here, but I do love a bit of cash. So in this ghost world, and I really hope I'm not spoiling this book, Lorgar crashes through reality and manages to persuade these Thousand Sons guards, let me in to see Magnus. And is there a Night Lord's jumper? I don't know, there may not be. I'll tell you what there is. Adeptus Mechanicus, Necron, Orc, Red Gobbo, Age of Sigmar, Space Wolves. I don't think there is a Night Lord's Christmas jumper. Funny that. Anywho, Magnus sees Lorgar and thinks it's a vision because the warp, as you know, they're always getting at Magnus. Magnus is always dipping in and out of the warp, swimming about, crashing into the places he shouldn't. So when Magnus meets Lorgar in this vision, he says, you're not the Lorgar I know, you're not scarred. Because obviously Magnus is in a future time frame and is remembering Lorgar after his massive scrap with Korax. And, you know, after Lorgar went very tattooed. The next chapter in the book is called Part 4, Chosen of the Pantheon. And I think this is really clever because this is Chosen of the Pantheon meaning the Primarchs, or Chosen of the Pantheon of the different Chaos Gods. So what happens in this one is they are still having this long chat. The demon is still like going on and on at him. Jim says the squig jumper sold out. It might come back. They might do another drop, Jim. I could probably do a large. I've put a medium up there, but are they all sold out? The squig jumper is so cute. I should say, and I think this is relevant, but I think I've missed the relevance in this, because this book's quite short. It doesn't spell out as much stuff, but it says Ingethel's psychic shriek went through him like a blade. For the first time since the maiden Arcadia had become his demonic guide, he heard the girl within the creature. She was screaming with it. So maybe that was the girl in... Was it the girl in First Heretic? I don't know. I'll be honest, my memory is shot, which is why I need Ian and Jim and Christian. And we then have Lorgar having a massive smackdown with a chaos god. Its wings rose first, huge bestial black wings, the membranes between the muscles and bones as tough as old leather, cobwebbed by thick, pulsing veins. Scarred fur coated much of its body, while the rest of its bunched musculature was encased in great brass armour plating. Its horned head defied easy description. To Lorgar, it resembled nothing but the malicious features of old Terran's greatest devil spirit, the Satan, as seen in some of the oldest scrolls. It did more than tower over any mortal man. It stood above them as a colossus. Its fists, each the size of a legionary, gripped two weapons. The first a lashing whip that thrashed of its own accord, sidewinding across the sands, and the second an immense axe of beaten brass, its surfaces encrusted with dense metal runic scripture. It is a Balrog. It's a heavy metal Balrog. Lorgar's retinal displays offered no insight at all. One moment they listed details in a runic language the Primarch had never learned. The next they told him nothing was there. When he spoke, his voice was a breathless exhalation, crackling through the lowest frequency of his helm's voxgrill. What in my father's name is that? Christian says, this is a bloodthirster, a greater demon of Khorne. Lorgar is given a final test by Khorne, as he's a bit wimpy for a Primarch. This is horrible. This is why we need to protect the nerds. Protect nerd culture and scripture writers. Priests are cool too. Wonder Voyage says warped Balrog. Indeed. So I thought that he was fighting Khorne. I thought he was actually fighting a god, and I thought that was incredibly cool. I love, as usual, ADB's turn of phrase. The first blow struck with the force of a gunship falling from the sky and with an impact at the same volume. The cleaving blade crashed against the golden maul, both weapons banging together and locking fast. Sparks sprayed from the elbow joints of Lorgar's armour as the muscle-mimicking servos overloaded and shorted out. But he did it. He blocked the first blow. In spiteful retaliation for the beast's presence, his crozier kissed the axe's edge with leaping bolts of electrical force. With a cry that wouldn't have shamed a feral world carnosaur, the Primarch hurled the bloodthirster's axe backward in a heaving shove and brought his warhammer to fall on a downstroke, smashing into the creature's knee. I'm skipping some bits. Something in the demon's leg cracked with the wet rip of a tree trunk falling. Oof. There's some really great turns of phrase in here. Let this be finished. Lorgar bared his teeth, unaware how his expression reflected the demon's. For a wonder, it replied through its broken jaws and the architecture of cracked teeth. Its voice was pulled right down from the thunderheads colliding above. All the strength in the flesh and the bitter caress and the taste of blood on my tongue. He knew those words, he knew them well. Perhaps the beast had intended them as a distraction. Perhaps it was channeling mockery straight from the mouth of a god. Either way, Lorgar met the next attack with a laugh. And Lorgar really gets the poop beaten out of him. He is struck everything despite their vaunted immortality. Yes, Primarch on the ropes, excellent. Primarch fighting, Primarch getting smashed. Despite their vaunted immortality, despite the invulnerability bred into their bones, a Primarch was still a being of flesh and blood. One of Angron's snorted witticisms came back to him in these moments. Lorgar mused over mortality. If something bled, it could be killed. Everything bleeds, Lorgar. His brother's words, cutting right to the quick, even years after they were first uttered. Tanks bled fuel and coolant. Aliens bled blood and ooze. Angron had never stood upon a battlefield and failed to apply his own brand of tortured logic to the conflict. Lorgar hauled back against the drag, succeeding in doing nothing beyond pulling the coiled lash tighter. The demon's clumsy, shattered hand reached for his torso, and the Primarch's kick crunched into its thumb, mangling it further. Yeah, just some epic moments. Yeah, sorry, getting lost in the words. Basically, Lorgar does beat him in the end, but he is completely messed up. And with that, once he's kind of completed he's killed the boss level, the demons disappear. The last words of the demon are, then Teach comes down. I think it's Teach or one of Teach's cronies, two-headed bird, telling Lorgar what's going to happen and dropping some legend lore. This is about... Oh yes, they give Lorgar a vision of killing Guilliman. This, my brother, is for every life lost in the name of a lie. Lorgar hauled the Lord of Mackerridge up by the throat, smashing him back against the wall even as he strangled him. Your fleet burns, your astral kingdom dies next. Guilliman managed to smile. So I still don't know if Lorgar does kill Guilliman, because I haven't read everything and I'm kept away from knowledge. And I don't keep a lot of knowledge in my brain, as I'm sure many of you are aware. And Lorgar can't believe that happens, because he was like, why is Guilliman smiling? The creature doesn't tell Lorgar exactly what's going to happen, because creatures from the warp are all massive liars. They cannot be trusted, as we all know. The creature says, I'm not your seer, Emperor's son. I have given you the choice. You will make it in time. And the choice is either you will be... I think the choice is you need to go and destroy the Ultramarines before they can rush back to Terra. Lorgar says, wait, please. The demon says, all will be decided in ultima segmentum, Lorgar. Vengeance or vision, glory or truth. So Lorgar is fully loaded up on the lore from his side quest. And we head into the last part of the book, Crusade's End. And this is very, very sad now. Lorgar has made a decision about what he's going to do. David Gibbs said, I always thought the T was silent. Zinch. I think it is. Don't come to me for pronunciation. Christian says, Primarchs are tough, but this is a Lord of Khorne's armies on its home field. This is a very close fight. I love how Lorgar remembers his brother Angram when he needed the strength. Yeah, that was lovely. I didn't get that sentimental hook in there. And I love it too, Christian, now you've drawn attention to it. Christian says, Karios Fateweaver, greater demon of Zinch and oracle of all time. That must be the two-headed bird. Tony says, my dad's harder than yours. Christian says, Kairos knows nearly everything, but only when both heads speaks as one can you trust its words, which they almost never do. And in this book, Kairos does speak at the same time. Al Magavar, I always figured it was pronounced like Tsar, Zinch. I think that's nice. I'm going to try and do that. So Crusade's End. So Lorgar goes and tells Magnus what happened. And Magnus goes, oh yeah, I remember you in that vision. Then they go back to the council chamber. All the brothers are gone. And it's just Horus, Angren. And Lorgar says, where's Fulgrim? And they say, oh, Fulgrim, he's down on the planet. You can go see him. So Lorgar goes down, gets hold of Fulgrim, and beams back up, gets a shuttle to Fulgrim's ship, where he looks around at all the shattered remains of the drinking den, where the terrible Noise Marines Crab Lady opera happened. And basically again, and what happens is Fulgrim, the demon, reveals himself, and Lorgar says, where is my brother? So the demon takes him and shows him the painting and says, this is your brother. Your brother is in here. So, you know, game recognized game, Lorgar is very, very scornful of the demon in Fulgrim. He has a great put down. Where is it? It's worth bearing with me for this because it's so good. Okay. There's a great conversation between the two of them. I just don't want to just ruin it all. So the demon shows him the painting and he says, can you see your brother? And Lorgar says, I see more than you realise. If you think to relish all of eternity while playing puppeteer to my brother's bones, you will find yourself fatally disappointed one night. Which I took as Lorgar is not happy that the demon has taken over Fulgrim. So I was thinking, could Fulgrim still be saved? Because the book is saying Fulgrim was taken over by a demon, but Lorgar is controlling demons. Lorgar's like the head of, you know, demon squadron. Anyway, it was a really good read. It filled in a lot of gaps for me. It was interesting to read a dialogue from the perspective of a Primarch talking to a warp being, which I don't think we've ever had so fully discovered and disclosed before. It speaks to Lorgar's character, which is that of broken but unswerving, determined, tenacious. You know, you don't think he's going to survive the battle with the demons. You don't even think he's going to survive the atmosphere. But he incredibly is able to overcome the demon. And then from his first encounter in the council chamber with his brothers, he goes in to the next encounter very much telling Horus, I'm going to define my own fate and my part of this new heresy. I am taking a bunch of souls. We're going to go and mess with the Ultramarines. And Lorgar is unleashed. Lorgar and his demon forces are unleashed. So it was a very transformative book. I think the same... we get quite a diabolical transformation throughout First Heretic. We get a similarly interesting and diabolical transformation in this book. So, yeah. Very emotionally exhausting to read. There's a lot of information and, you know, I'm still filling in gaps that I don't know from Codex and I still get very easily confused. But the power of Aaron Dembski-Bowden's writing makes it very easy to be drawn in and pummeled about by the words in the fights and the emotional kind of Armageddon that's going on. Especially like as my heart sank as I realised Fulgrim is not going to be saved. But yeah, it was a book that had to be written. Like, the heresy is richer for this book being in there. I don't think it's an actual official part of the heresy. It's not a Horus Heresy number in its own right, but definitely applies. David Gibb was using the beer Sing Sao as a pronunciation guide. Jim says the T's silent. Acoustic Noise Machine, welcome to the chat. I too take the Chinese language as how I pronounce Zinch. Not a hard T, but not absent either. Jim says it just accents the Z. Well, let's have a great heated debate. Lazy Commander 277. I wonder if we're going to have that painting come back in 40k. How much... You know, I feel like the Primarchs are very back-seated in 40k. 40k is much more about the armies. Seems central to the relation between Fulgrim and the demon, says Lazy Commander. Christian says, in the timeline, this happens before the reflection cracked. Lorgar kind of guessed the event to come for Fulgrim. Painter Piper Spaceman says it's really interesting how much this book fits like a key piece of character and story development. Tony says, in my part of the world, we never pronounce the T's anyway. Luton Airport. Very nice. It is. I think when you look back at like the Black Library kind of 10 decades ago, there were lots and lots of opportunities, and I think probably because the books were doing so well, for certain writers to be able to go off on these little flights of embellishing and digging into the story a little bit more. We also had lots of short stories which were gathered together for various Games Workshop events. So, you know, we've had stories that came out because they were gathered into special books that you would get if you went to this Games Day and things. Very, very lucky. And, you know, I think it's so great that they gave them such beautiful artwork and binding as they did. Pigeon Smith. Hello, Pigeon. Long time no see. Last night, Games Workshop announced a reprint or a curated list of key Heresy books. We need to react to that announcement. Where's that? Where can I find that on Tinternets? I'm hoping some of the gaps in my collection are included. I have the early ones, but I'm trying to scoop up the others when possible. That's so interesting. I wonder if they will be paperbacks or whether they will be special editions, hardbacks. I'm going to Google it and see if I can find that. Christian says, Lorgar became a lot more confident, self-assured and focused from first Heretic to here. He has a glow up. He does indeed. David Gibbs says, he's so good. Has he wrote anything outside 40k? I don't know when he'd have time to. Let's have a look. Aaron Dembski-Bowden. Bibliography. It's hard to look it up because everything's just so Warhammer centric. I don't know. I'm trying to look up his works, but it might be all the websites I'm looking on are so Warhammer centric. I'm just spinning down the Goodreads list. Yeah, it's a lot of Black Library. I will have to do a proper investigation at some point. Historitor Jamaldis has retracted some statements. Interesting, Jim. What are you up to? Let me see. Games Workshop, Heresy, books. And I'll look under news. This is interesting. 1 week ago, PC Gamer put a article together called The Horus Heresy Books Reading Order, Where to Start and Where to Stop. Ha! Where to stop. Weaklings. Fools! Oh, I'm gutted I didn't see that announcement. Thank goodness my YouTube friends and followers do. David says, he takes a long time to write his books. His blogs were quite good, but I don't know if that's still going. That's so funny. As a writer of a book, you try writing a book quickly. It takes a long time, David. Acoustic Noise Machine. GW's official name for the trimmed Horus Heresy collection is the Horus Heresy Saga series. Pigeon says, yeah, hi, I'm often here, just forget to input chat as painting while listening. It was part of the World Championship live stream yesterday. Audio was awful, so not worth reacting to. There's a World Championship of Warhammer. How can that be fair? How can you balance armies? It's like Karate Kid, isn't it? Historitor Jamaldis says, 12 books, none of the rarest ones. Okay. I'm going to look it up. The Horus Heresy Saga series. Aha! As Alan Partridge would say. Let me share my screen, my pretties. I hope you can all see that. This is... I haven't got my monitor up, so I don't know if you can see it or not. 2 minutes ago. Oh my goodness, we're some of the first people to watch this. You can't do a comment or I'd have written first here. Experience. I'm just going to hop back into my OBS. I found a pretty comprehensive bibliography and it doesn't mention anything other than 40k for him. Thank you. Hopefully you can see when I'm switching screens in and out. Otherwise, I'm just going to be talking at you. Which is very boring. Maybe there's a lag. I'm sure I'll just have to keep popping back till someone says whether we're in or not. World Championships Preview. Experience the greatest hits of the Horus Heresy saga in a new curated series. The Horus Heresy series from Black Library is massive, boasting 54 novels and short story collections before we even get to the gates of the Imperial Palace in the Siege of Terror series. But where is a book lover to start? That's interesting. This link points to Thousand Sons, Azek Ariman, lol, book lover, and how do you know what's next? And this points to Conrad Kerr's Primarch of the Night Lords, which is very funny because Conrad does prophecy. Okay, great. Tony says, yep, can see. The upcoming Horus Heresy Saga series is a curated collection of 12 iconic novels, which takes you through the pivotal events of the Age of Darkness, from the War Master's rebellion to the traitor's arrival in the Sol system. Each book in the saga will feature brand new cover art by Neil Roberts. Yay, we're not worthy! Neil, thank you so much. The artist who did all except one of the original Horus Heresy and Siege of Terror cover art. Of course, we're starting with award-winning Dan Abnett's classic opener, Horus Rising, and the cover looks little something like this. Wowie zowie. Crikey, look at that. Wow, it's so clean. Very nice. I approve. Approve of that cover. It's a perfect way for newcomers to jump into the series, and it also lets veteran Heresy readers relive some of their favourite novels. Has it really been nearly 20 years since the release of Horus Rising? Sounds like warp shenanigans to us. The 12 books that make up this collection will include Horus Rising by Dan Abnett, False Gods by Graham McNeill, Galaxy in Flames by Ben Counter, The Flight of the Eisenstein by James Swallow, Fulgrim by Graham McNeill, The First Heretic by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, Prospero Burns by Dan Abnett, No Fear by Dan Abnett. That's not right. Is it? Crikey. Is that right? Have I lost my mind? I didn't know he had 2 in a row. Yes, it is. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just... Oh, I'm getting mixed up because it's out of order. No Fear and Prospero Burns, both Dan Abnett. Betrayer by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, Praetorian of Dawn by John French, The Master of Mankind by ADB, and Slaves to Darkness by John French. Interesting. Are those the same 12 books you would have chosen if you could only have chosen 12? These novels cover some of the most important moments of the Heresy, the battles of Isfahan 3 and 5, the fall of Lorgar and the word bearers to chaos, the burnings of Prospero and Calth, and a look... This is so breakfast TV. And a look at what the Emperor was doing on Terra while Horus was making his way across the galaxy. Each one will be released first in a hardback English edition before making it to paperback in English, French and German. Of course, these novels are also great jumping off points for exploring the rest of the original Horus Heresy series. Look out for more cover artwork reveals here at Warhammer Community as the series goes on. And in the meantime, head back to our preview show hub to see everything else we're showing off today. Well, how lovely was that? New Warhammer quest, says David Gibb. Yeah, that's very lovely. And whenever they do anything around Horus Heresy, which I know is stupid because they're still trying to promote the game, the Horus Heresy, I think, is this because the Amazon Prime is going to be... The Amazon Prime program is going to be Horus Heresy based? Because that would be awesome. And then I just think, I don't know. Is there a reason why the final Beckwin has not come out? Is that... is that being held back? Because that could be tied in with whatever Amazon are doing. We just don't know, and we would like to know what Amazon are doing. Please, Games Workshop, We're waiting. Okay, please feel free to clip that and never ever send it to anybody. Waller TV says we can see. Thank you, Waller. When I saw the cover art from the new Horus Heresy saga, I thought we were getting a new Horus Primarch novel till I read the title. Oh, Jake, that would have been amazing. Jake also enjoyed what they showed at the reveals. Jim says new Nurgle models, so good. Wonder Voyage says the new cataphracti are nice. I know what they are. They're shark people. Sharp things. Lazy Commander did like hearing about the one Necron T-Bat still likes the Catans. That sentence means nothing to me. Plagueis Speaker says also for the first time all of the Mournival is on the cover. Good shout out, Plague Speaker. Maybe I can sell some more of my Mournival t-shirts, which are available through links to my merch and on my Redbubble. Jake says the Age of Sigmar reveals for the Maggotkin of Nurgle was the show's main highlight, in my opinion. Maggotkin? The Maggotkin of Nurgle? I'm excited to discover that. I bet that's truly disgusting. Waller says, not in a row, they jump a few. Plague Speaker, if I had to choose instead of Prospero Bones, I would have done Thousand Suns. Also, I would have made it 14 and included Legion and Angel Exterminatus in it. That's a good sign. I'm just reading Angel Exterminatus too. Tony says, will we get readings in German or French? If someone buys me a German or French novel, I will attempt to butcher the language. Pigeon Smith, ironically, I picked up the last 3 in that list last week as the paperbacks are currently available. I had the others already, so it didn't help with any gaps. Oh no, Pigeon, that's always the way. Jake Wu says, 1,000 Suns would have been a better pick. I agree with that. Jamalda says, Carcadons are the sharks. Cataphracti is a type of Terminator armor. God damn it! Just when we think we're getting there, we're not. We're not. But this girl is clearly overtired, and I'll tell you why. I put my heart and soul into cooking spaghetti bolognese, and then I ate too much, and I'm going into a pasta coma. And for anyone who's interested, I use Shell Pasta because they make delicious parcels of bolognese sauce. It's like double food joy. Anyway, thank you all so much for this impromptu gathering. I am finishing Flesh and Steel by Gay Haley tomorrow because on Monday, Arbiter Ian and I are talking about Aurelian, Fear to Tread by James Swallow and Flesh and Steel by Guy Haley. If you are a YouTube member, then please go ahead and leave me some questions. There's a community post that you can see if you look at my YouTube page where you can leave some questions. If you are a Mirror Manga Patreon member, again, please go to the Patreon post and you can leave some questions. I will take them to Ian and we will try and tackle them. My question to Ian is, who is your favourite YouTube Warhammer person and why is it Mirror Manga? So let's see if he answers that. Waller is very kindly saying, so many proper nouns, it's hard to keep them all straight. David says, it is impossible to eat too much bolognese. I think so, I agree. Pigeon Smith, without spoilers, Unremembered Empire is quite relevant to 40k, so I'm surprised it didn't get a reprint. Al McGavar, I chose Nemesis 12 times. Yes, James Swallow. We love a bit of Nemesis. Tony, but you must finish Spag Bowl with tiramisu. I'm going to have strawberries dipped in dark chocolate, but I'm going to be good because I really have problems with cholesterol and putting on a lot of weight, so I'm only going to have a few chocolate strawberries. The Baroque Trickster says, thank you so much, Mira. Well, I would really like to thank, we heard from so many people in the chat today that I don't ever normally hear from, so it's really great to hear from people who clearly generally watch and don't say things. Pigeon Smith, always such a joy to have you in the chat. Christian and Jamaldus and everybody else who's been helping me out with lore and is so patient, thank you so much. I can imagine if I was on any other Warhammer channel and I kept repeatedly forgetting things, mistaking things, being confused, not understanding things, I would be thoroughly thrashed and driven off the internet. So I'm very, very grateful. My followers are the best. I really appreciate you. If you would like to support me with money, I'm terrible at this, but I'm going to try and promote it. I've now got an Amazon wish list, which I just think is crazy, but I saw all the Warhammer jumpers and I was like, yes, 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 yes. but I can't spend any more money on clothes. You can also buy a Mirror Manga YouTube membership or a Mirror Manga Patreon. If you do so, you get freebies and extras, and I'm always trying to think of better ways to give more value. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to get anything, please, at the very least, do a like and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, hide your kids, hide your wife. We're coming at you with some very old, smelly paperbacks. So yeah, you're so welcome, Tony. Tony, would you like a poem to finish? What say you, Tony? Everybody else is allowed to leave. Regulars will know that we do lots of poems on this channel. Tony in particular is the biggest poetry fan, so you're not expected to stick around. We'll do a poem. If any of you are poets or would ever like any of your poems to be read out on my channel on a Sunday night at the end of our stream, please send them through. Really happy to support up and coming poets, really happy to support published poets, really happy to support famous poets. So that's all good. Wallace says, the first step to being good at a thing is being awful at a thing. David says, basically, we're all amazing. Basically. Almogavar, this is probably the chillest corner of 40k, apart from maybe Luton where everyone's asleep. I don't know that. I will look up the gag. Look, you really tickled Alex with that, Almogavar. Very, very good. Okay, so quietly we go. It's quite chilled out on my channel, apart from when I'm having an anxiety attack. So this is a poem called Harlem 2 by Langston Hughes. It's taken from the book Essential Poems from the Staying Alive trilogy, edited by Neil Astley. I am on the hunt for the other two in this trilogy. And I really need to get my arse in gear because these were published quite a while ago. 2012. So we need to pick them up quickly. Also, has anybody read the last Philip Pullman book? I haven't, but I'm hoping it's good. Luton makes lore videos. People say they listen to them to fall asleep. Oh, that's lovely. I have done some Warhammer inspired sleep meditation videos on my channel. Look them up if you're knackered. Alex, I love Luton, by the way. It's just people put his videos on to fall asleep to. Very lovely. I do that with Mark Maron sometimes. I love Mark Maron. I listen to his podcast, but also when I'm feeling sad, I like Mark Maron to talk me to sleep. Like to imagine him with me in bed. Let's be honest. He is my type. Well, actually, I don't think he's my type. I just fancy Mark Maron. Okay, so let's read this poem, Harlem 2 by Langston Hughes. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore, and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over, like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags, like a heavy load. Or does it explode? I think that's an excellent poem to have read after reading Aurelian. So, thank you all so much for joining me on the stream. Really beautiful. For those of you who are interested, tomorrow night's poem, one of three, will be Archaic Torso of Apollo by Rainer Marie Rilke. Excuse me. So that will be good to look forward to. Painter Piper Spaceman. Is your name like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spaceman, but Painter Piper Spaceman? Or are you a painter, piper and spaceman? And are you a musical piper or are you a plumber type piper? Painter Piper Spaceman says, Lord Byron, all Fulgrim all the time. Isn't Fulgrim Dorian Gray? Brav Gihid says, Raisin in the Sun is a great play too. Raisin in the Sun, what's that? Well, at the end of this evening, we've been left with more questions than answers. Almogavar says, oh my God, I love Rilke. Almogavar, we've had other poems by her from this series, I think. But we also had Rumi. Rainer Marie Rilke. Rumi's one of my favourites. Painter Piper Spaceman says, haha, yes and musical. And do you go into spaceman? Or do you paint pipe in space? That would be an incredible job. What do you do? A paint pipe in space. So I guess you're painting minis and what kind of pipes? Bagpipes, I hope. Let's all rush over to Paint a Pipe as Spaceman's YouTube channel and see if there are any videos of him painting pipes in space. Tony says the space station general handyman. I definitely feel like the well inspectors would be in league with the painter piper spaceman. So let's put that in our lore. Okay, kiddos, I'm really going to go and get to bed. I have a whole book to read tomorrow. I also have some freelance work to do on my beloved Trench Crusade. So I will love you and leave you. We'll be here at 8 o'clock on Sunday night. If you're not a member, please consider becoming a member. If you haven't subscribed, join us. One of us, one of us, one of us. Thank you all so much for your kindness.